Hi, how's everybody doing today? I am here to give you some lifelong learning like I normally do. It's a little different with the webinar, but I hope you enjoy it just the same. I hope you're all doing well, and I hope I can contribute to some activities. And I think we'll do this once a week if we could pull it off and your activity directors allow it. Anyhow, I'm Jeff Kampf. Those of you who don't know me, I do lifelong learning, and today we're going to look at influential women in history. This is a great lecture because it recognizes very influential women all throughout history, because March is National Women's Month, and I can't think of a better lecture for the month of March. So let's get started. We're going to start off with a PowerPoint, and we're going to look at women who shaped our history, and then we'll look at some videos. Our first woman, Bella Abzug, a lot of you will remember her. New York City civil rights and labor attorney, known for her wide-brimmed hats and her fiery personality. I remember her well. She always had some great dresses and crazy outfits that she wore. She was a tireless crusader for the poor, minorities, and women. And in 1970, she was elected to the House of Representatives, and on her first day, introduced a bill calling for an end to the Vietnam War, as she was an anti-war activist. I remember her New York accent so well. I hear her voice in my head. I'm sure you do as well. During her 2 terms in office, she would continue to fight for women's rights, gay rights, and many, many other issues. Jane Addams, quote, "I am not one of those who believe, broadly speaking, that women are better than men. We have not wrecked railroads, nor corrupted legislatures, nor done many unholy things that men have done. But then we must remember that we had not had the chance." What a great quote, because women between 1860 and 1935 really didn't have much power. You could see that her stamp. She was a big activist, very influential woman on women's rights, and that is the stamp that they dedicated to her right there below her picture. Madeleine Albright, one of my favorites. I really respect her. She was born in 1937 in Czechoslovakia. In 1997, she was sworn in a U.S. Secretary of State. She was Secretary of State, and she was the first woman in this position, as well as the highest ranking women in the United States government. A very outspoken lady, and always wore a pin. I remember she always had a pin, as you could see in the picture. I remember her very well, and she was quite a tough lady. Our next woman is Maya Angelou. I have a personal story. When I graduated with my master's from Kean University, at my graduation, Maya Angelou spoke, and I was just blown away. She was remarkable. She was born in 1928. She is an American poet, a memorist, and also an actress. She was an important figure in the American Civil Rights Movement, and in 2001, she was named one of the 30th most powerful women in America by Ladies' Home Journal. She lived in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Since this PowerPoint was produced, she has since passed on. Quite a lady. Susan B. Anthony, I know that you know that name. She was an abolitionist, anti-slavery, educational reformer, a labor activist, a temperance worker, a suffragist, and a women's rights campaigner. There's her stamp dedicated to her, and she died in 1906. I believe there's also a coin with Susan B. Anthony's picture on it. Josephine Baker, 1906 to 1975, a wonderful, wonderful actress, an incredible star, international star, African-American civil rights activist, World War II heroine. She was a dancer and a singer. Josephine Baker, absolutely an amazing woman. Lucille Ball, of course, without question, you all know Lucille Ball. She died in 1989, remains one of the most loved comedians of all times, first woman to ever run a multi-million-dollar corporation. I Love Lucy remains one of the most loved TV shows of all times. It is currently in reruns. I used to watch it when I was little and home from school while I had a cold or whether I was sick. Lucille Ball, also a stamp dedicated to her, as you see in the picture. Anne Bancroft. She was born in 1955. She was a teacher, a coach, and an athlete. The first woman who joined a dog sled expedition and crossed the ice to the North Pole. In 1993, Bancroft led a team of 4 women skiing and pulling sleds to the South Pole. Involved in organizations dedicated to helping women, girls, and those with learning and physical disabilities, Anne Bancroft. Our next woman was Ida B. Wells Barnett. She died in 1931. She actually was an African-American educator, a newspaper woman, anti-lynching campaigner, and she was a founder of the NAACP. Of course, the NAACP is a big civil rights organization, usually works with the courts for American civil rights. That is her stamp also. Clara Barton, incredible Civil War nurse, founder of the American Red Cross, which of course is a huge organization, and this organization is still extremely active today, especially now. That is her stamp, and you can see that Clara Barton was born in 1821 and died the year of the Titanic sinking, 1912. Joan Benoit Samuelson. The marathon for women was introduced in the 1841 Los Angeles Olympic Games, and this 26-year-old took home the gold, becoming a national celebrity. Famous for her record-breaking performances in the Boston Marathon, setting an American record in 1979 and a world record in 1983. Bonnie Blair, the fastest U.S. speed skater who ever lived, considered one of the top 10 Winter Olympic athletes of all time. She was the winner of 5 Olympic gold medals and the first American athlete to win 3 consecutive golds in any winter event. Helen Gurley Brown. She was an author and editor of Cosmopolitan magazine. Brown claimed that women could have it all: love, sex, and money. Quote, "Beauty can't amuse you, but brain work, reading, and writing and thinking can." Helen Gurley Brown. Molly Brown. Let's stick with the Browns. Famous survivor of the Titanic disaster, part of the Denver mining boom, and also known as the unsinkable Molly Brown, died in 1932. Martha Jane Calamity Jane Canary. She died in 1903. A lone woman in the wilds of the Rocky Mountain West, a gender rebel, very big on women's rights as far back as the 1860s. She was a frontier figure and a Wild West show performer, and you can see her stamp there under her picture. Rachel Carson, marine biologist, a science writer, and an environmentalist. You can see her stamp there. She died in 1964. A very famous scientist. Rosalind Carter, wife of the 39th President of the United States, Jimmy Carter, honored by the National Organization for Women with an award of merit for her vigorous support for the Equal Rights Amendment. Carrie Chapman Catt. She died in 1947. She was a suffragette, and she founded the League of Women Voters. That is her stamp. Notice it's only 3 cents. Do you remember when stamps were 3 cents? Shirley Chisholm. In 1968, this New York City teacher and child care worker changed the face of Congress when she became the first African-American woman elected. Chisholm worked to reform government to meet the needs of all citizens, especially minorities, women, and children. Eva M. Clayton, first woman and first African-American woman to represent North Carolina in Congress. She was an advocate for rural health care, housing assistance, and job training. Lillian Exum Clement. She was a Buncombe County native, and she became the first woman elected to the North Carolina House of Representatives. First woman to serve in any state legislature in the South. First woman in North Carolina to open her own law practice. Talk about firsts. Bessie Coleman was the first African-American woman to receive her pilot's license. First U.S. woman to hold an international pilot license, and there is her 32-cent stamp. Mildred Babe Didrikson, six-time winner of the Women Athlete of the Year Award, named Woman Athlete of the Half Century in 1950. She holds more medals and records in more sports than any other 20th century athlete. That is her stamp. Dorothy Dix opened and ran a small dame school for girls at the age of 15. Noted social reformer and lifelong advocate of better treatment for the mentally ill and imprisoned. She persuaded the North Carolina state legislature to make its first appropriation to a hospital for the insane. That is her 1-cent stamp below her picture. Isadora Duncan, mother of modern dance, met her demise in a freak automobile accident where her scarf got caught in the wheel of the car and killed her instantly in 1927. Of course, Amelia Earhart, Aviatrix, or is it Aviatrix, co-navigated the first round-the-world flight. During a flight, her plane disappeared, and her death to this day remains a mystery. That is her 8-cent stamp below her picture. Gertrude Eldale, born in 1906, Eldale not only completed swimming the English Channel, she broke the men's record by almost 2 hours. She set many other world records in swimming and won 3 medals in the 1924 Olympic Games. She later became a swimming instructor for the deaf, as her own hearing had been permanently impaired by the famous English Channel swim. Gertrude B. Elion won the Nobel Peace Prize for medicine for pioneering research in drug development at Burroughs Wellcome in Research Triangle Park. She developed the first chemotherapy for childhood leukemia, the immune suppressant that made organ transplantation possible, the first effective antiviral medication, and treatment for lupus, hepatitis, arthritis, and gout. What an amazing woman. What an amazing scientist. Geraldine Ferraro, another personal story. Geraldine Ferraro lived in St. Croix at the same time my parents were there. She used to fly on the airplane with my parents, and they used to speak often. Geraldine Ferraro was the first woman to be nominated for a presidential ticket. Earlier in her career, Ferraro was a district attorney working to protect women, children, and the elderly. Betty Friedan, 1921 to 2006. She was a writer and activist. She helped shape the modern feminist movement. And in 1966, she co-founded and served as president of the National Organization for Women. In other words, NOW, an organization dedicated to equal opportunities for women. NOW is still a very popular and important organization, and there is her stamp below her picture. Dian Fossey devoted her life to the study and protection of mountain gorillas beginning in 1966. Earning their trust, she was the first person to have friendly contact with a gorilla. Her book, Gorillas in the Midst, brought international attention to the plight of the mountain gorillas and gorilla poaching. She died in 1985. Athea Gibson, excluded from professional tennis tournaments early in her career because she was Black, but in 1950, she was finally permitted to play in the United States Nationals, which is today the U.S. Open. She was the first African-American to compete in the tournament, and she won in 1957 and in 1958. First African woman to win the French Open and Wimbledon. Jane Goodall, English primatologist, ethologist, and anthropologist. She's best known for her study of chimpanzee social and family life in Gombe Stream National Park for 45 years, and for founding the Jane Goodall Institute. If you Google her, those of you with a computer, you can watch many of her videos of her and her chimpanzees. Mia Hamm, born in 1972, considered one of the best women athletes in the world, led the USA in an Olympic gold medal and 2 World Cup championships. By 1999, she scored more points in international competition than any other soccer player in history, man or woman. Audrey Hepburn, one of my favorites, an Academy Award-winning Anglo-Dutch actress of film and theater, Broadway stage performer, ballerina, fashion model, and humanitarian. In 1999, she was ranked as the 3rd greatest female star of all time by the American Film Institute. I remember her well in My Fair Lady, one of my favorite films. USA 37 cent stamp below her picture. Katharine Hepburn. In 1999, the American Film Institute ranked Hepburn as the top female star in their Greatest American Screen Legends list. Hepburn had a famous and longtime romance with Spencer Tracy, both on and off the screen. Quote, I never realized until lately that women were supposed to be the inferior sex. Rear Admiral Grace Hopper, computer pioneer, first person to use the term bug for a computer glitch, and she was the oldest officer in active duty when she retired in 1986. Hedda Hopper, in the golden age of Hollywood, she could make or break careers. Gossip was her business. J. Edgar Hoover was her pen pal. There's her stamp right below her picture. Dolores Huerta, a teacher who saw the effects of the working conditions on migrant farm families. In 1962, she co-founded the United Farm Workers Union, the UFW, and her work led to the passage of the Agricultural Labor Relations Act in 1975, the first Bill of Rights for farm workers in the United States. One of the most respected leaders of the labor movement, she embraces nonviolent actions to fight for change. Mahalia Jackson, an incredible gospel singer, first African-American woman to gain national acclaim for gospel music. There's her stamp. Mother Mary Harris Jones. She died in 1930. She was an Irish immigrant who lost her entire family to yellow fever, became the self-proclaimed mother and hellraiser for the downtrodden. She was an American laborer, especially children. Helen Keller, a deaf and blind, mute American author, activist, lecturer, teacher, an amazing woman, a big activist, and of course, there's her stamp. You all know Helen Keller. Jackie Joyner Kersee. Although she had struggled with asthma and allergies for years, many considered Joyner Kersee the best all-round women athlete in the world. She won 6 Olympic medals, including 3 gold in the long jump and heptathlon. She also broke the world record in the heptathlon, a 2-day event that includes hurdles, high jump, shot put, long jump, javelin, a 200-meter race, and an 800-meter race. Billie Jean King, famous tennis player, most famous for the Battle of the Sexes. I'm laughing because I remember this so well. She defeated Bobby Riggs, the macho tennis player who warned her and told her that she could never beat him, but yet she did in 1973. Juliette Gordon Low, founder of the Girl Scouts of America, and there, of course, is her stamp. Barbara McClintock. In 1951, this geneticist found that genetic information could transfer from one chromosome to another. This information would ultimately help in understanding human disease. It took years before the scientific community acknowledged her findings. At the age of 81, McClintock was awarded the Nobel Prize in Genetics. What an amazing scientist, and there's her stamp. Mary McLeod Bethune, teacher, social reformer, founded a school for young African-American women in 1904, now Bethune-Cookman College in Daytona Beach, Florida. She was the founder of the National Council of Negro Women to advance opportunities and the quality of life for African-American women, their families, and of course, their communities. There's her stamp. Elaine Marshall, elected North Carolina's first female Secretary of State, She was also the first woman elected to statewide executive office. Dolly Madison, I love her for her ice cream, but she was a Guilford County native. Dolly Madison, wife of the fourth president, James Madison, remained one of the most popular first ladies in the nation's history, rescued valuable treasures from the White House before it was burned by the British Army in 1814. She was a sassy lover of feather turbans and snuff. She was a snuff doer. That is snuff, tobacco that is actually inhaled up your nose. But again, I love her ice cream. Margaret Mead, famous for bringing the science of anthropology to the general public, such as in her first book, Coming of Age in Samoa. Her works urge Americans to reconsider the notions of adolescence and the role of women in society. There's her 2 stamps, Margaret Mead. And of course, Marilyn Monroe. Diamonds are a girl's best friend. Born Norma Jean Mortensen, she grew up in foster care. She made 29 films. Her untimely death has been subject to speculation and conspiracy theories for many years. There's her stamp, Marilyn Monroe. Died in 1962. Sandra Day O'Connor, appointed by President Reagan to the Supreme Court, making her its first woman justice in 1981. Georgia O'Keeffe. I've been to the museum, the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum. I'm sure many of you have, in New Mexico. Famed American artist who defied convention in both her art and in her private life. She was known for her landscapes and her flowers. An incredible artist, Georgia O'Keeffe. Annie Oakley, world famous markswoman and entertainer. And she was born in 1860. She died in 1926. Annie Oakley, there's her stamp. Jacqueline O'Kennedy. Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis. She died in 1944. That's not right. 1929 to 1944. She was the wife of the 35th President of the United States, Jack Kennedy. During his presidency, Jackie Kennedy became known mostly for her fashion sense and for her redecoration of the White House. That is wrong information. She did not die in 1944. Let's not even go there. Rosa Parks, known as the mother of the Civil Rights Movement, a seamstress, changed history with a simple, courageous act in 1955. Refused to give up her seat on a public bus to a white man, and she was arrested for it. In 1956, the Supreme Court ruled segregation on buses illegal. She was a big activist for civil rights, Rosa Parks. Alice Stokes Paul, the woman who rescued the woman suffrage movement in 1910 and made sure women got the vote. Beverly Perdue, elected North Carolina's first female lieutenant governor, served as one of the state's chief budget writers, the first woman to hold this position, a champion of health and wellness, public education, clean water, and air. Dana Reeve, American actress, singer, and activist for disability causes. She was also the wife of actor Christopher Reeve. Janet Reno. In 1993, Janet Reno becomes the first woman U.S. Attorney General. And Libby Reynolds, the first woman ever to win the Iditarod, a challenging 1,000-mile dog sled race across Alaska, which has historically been a sport dominated by men. And Sally Ride. She was born in 51. In 1983, becomes the first American woman to be sent into space. Currently, she's a physicist and physics professor at the University of California in San Diego. Unfortunately, we did lose Sally Ride in the Challenger disaster. Eleanor Roosevelt, wife of President Franklin D. Roosevelt, first activist first lady. There's all her stamps. We all know Eleanor. Florence Sabin, in 1900, she became the first woman to graduate Johns Hopkins Medical School. She became the first woman to be named a full professor at Johns Hopkins. Her research led to important discoveries on the origins of the lymphatic system. Margaret Sanger, the activist, was a birth control advocate at a time when it was illegal simply to send mail with information on the topic. In 1914, she published The Woman Rebel, a newspaper advocating birth control. opened the nation's first birth control clinic in 1916, and was arrested, spending a month in jail. She was the founder of Planned Parenthood, Margaret Sanger. Muriel Siebert, financial expert, was one of the first big players on Wall Street. In 1967, she became the first woman to own a seat on the New York Stock Exchange, and in 1975, her firm, Muriel Siebert and Company, became the nation's first discount broker. She donates half of her firm's profits to charities. And Gloria Steinem, an American feminist icon, journalist, and women's rights advocate. She is the founder and original publisher of Ms. Magazine. All right, right now we're going to look at a couple of videos. Let's take a look at the 10 most inspiring women who changed the world. hope you enjoyed that. I thought it was quite a very good video. 10 most inspiring women who changed the world. Some different women than I spoke about. Now let's take a look at a video. This is the 10 most powerful women in the world. I think you'll enjoy this.
Nobody gives you power. You have to take it. Welcome to Ms. Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 most powerful women in the world. For this list, we're looking at the most influential women across the board, covering areas like business, politics, philanthropy. You get the picture. We're not, however, including entertainers, as they deserve a list of their own. These women must also still be alive and active with their power.
For me, owning a network or being a part of a network is about continuing to use that platform to raise the consciousness.
Number 10, Ginny Rometty. The first woman on our list started out at IBM in 1981 as a mere systems engineer. 30 years later, IBM announced her as their first ever female president.
I like to say digital is not a destination, it's a foundation.
CEOs like Indra Nooyi of PepsiCo and Meg Whitman of Hewlett-Packard Enterprise impress, but Rometty is a cut above the rest.
Well, it's a good question to talk about strategy. And I think when you say who's got it right, I actually believe an important lesson is you build your own strategy.
As chairwoman, president, and CEO of IBM, she's in charge of one of America's most important companies.
Well, IBM today is a solutions company, but IBM has been a solutions company. The change is the kinds of problems that we solve.
Rometty's made Fortune magazine's 50 most powerful women in business list 10 years in a row, topping it in 2012, 13, and 14. That probably has something to do with the fact that her net worth is somewhere in the area of $45 million. Keep your eyes on Rometty, as she's made big promises for IBM's future.
You know, look, IBM is an iconic company. It's an important company to this world. And I never felt the most important thing was that I was a woman. That wasn't it. It was about being and doing the right things as CEO for IBM.
Number 9, Isabel dos Santos.
Well, as a young person, undoubtedly the key thing is knowledge. You really have to learn.
According to Forbes, this Azerbaijan-born Angolan isn't only the richest woman in Angola, but she's also the richest woman in Africa. That's not surprising, considering she has an estimated net worth of over $3 billion. But her wealth isn't the only thing that makes Isabel dos Santos so influential.
So education is really still our gap. I think if anyone wants to help Africa, they definitely need to look on how to help our universities and how to help us gain more knowledge.
The oldest daughter of Angolan President José Eduardo dos Santos, she started her first business, a nightclub on the Luanda Island, when she was just 24. She used this as a springboard to increase her business interests and investments around the world, in industries like telecommunications, media, and finance. From these, she has built a reputation as a smart, vibrant, and respectable businesswoman over the years.
I think there's a young generation of African women who are highly educated. They're also very exposed to the world, and they want to build industries, they want to create jobs.
Number 8, Park Geun-hye. Currently the first ever female to be elected president of South Korea and its first female head of state, Park Geun-hye has helped the country work towards massive gains, both financially and socially. She worked her way to the top, serving as chairwoman of the Grand National Party and as a member of the Korean National Assembly. Under her watch, and according to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development Gender Gap Index, South Korean women have seen a notably improved level of educational and health equality. She is currently working on building a creative economy for South Korea, and while her approval ratings fluctuate, she has received much praise for her handling of the noisy neighbors to the north.
The President and I reaffirm that we will by no means tolerate North Korea's threats and provocations, which have recently been escalating further.
She's diffused several difficult situations with North Korea and kept her country moving forward.
Security comes when the lives of its people are improved. It comes when people are free to pursue their happiness.
Number 7, Sonia Gandhi. The current president of the Indian National Congress Party and chairperson of the United Progressive Alliance, Sonia Gandhi holds one of the most powerful political positions in the world. As a foreign-born leader in India, the most populous democratic nation with over 1.3 billion citizens, Gandhi has strategically worked to build a progressive nation. Rather than becoming prime minister in 2004, she elected to remain leader of the UPA as she could have more influence there. Still, she nominated the current Prime Minister Manmohan Singh and also has her son, Rahul, in parliament. Many praise Gandhi's leadership as she continues to help India overcome gender and ethnic prejudices.
We must have the courage to confront these social evils and fight against them.
Number 6. Marilyn Hewson. In 2013, her net worth was $25 million. It quickly became $34 million. Curious how that happened? After becoming CEO of Lockheed Martin, one of the world's biggest defense contractors that year, she churned out record profits.
We announced that we are in the process of acquiring Sikorsky, which is a helicopter company, and they provide helicopter and services. And we're really very excited. It's about a $9 billion deal for our company of about $45 billion. That's a pretty significant acquisition.
Her personal financial boost was the reward for her success. Since then, she's kept the company progressive. Under her leadership, Lockheed Martin has branched out into areas of defense such as cybersecurity and alternative energy.
But at Lockheed Martin, we live on the cutting edge of physics, material science, technology, and engineering. We obsess over things most people only imagine.
Additionally, she serves on the board of directors for Sandia National Laboratories. They do energy research for the U.S. government. And DuPont, one of the world's largest chemical companies. Needless to say, she's a busy woman. But somehow, brilliantly, she always finds success.
I spend a lot of time with world leaders around the world. I'm engaged in a lot of global security conferences and air shows, and certainly it's not an issue in the Department of Defense or on Capitol Hill.
Number 5. Hillary Clinton. At this point, is there anyone out there who doesn't know Hillary's name? She's had an illustrious career in U.S. politics, initially becoming part of public consciousness when she served as First Lady under her husband Bill Clinton's U.S. presidency.
And we are here to find common ground so that we may help bring new dignity and respect to women and girls all over the world.
Her real success, however, came later. She served as a senator, representing the state of New York from 2001 to 2009. From there, she served as the United States Secretary of State until 2013.
It is an overwhelming honor to be sworn in to assume this position on behalf of our country.
Of course, as of 2015, she's most known for being the most promising candidate to become the first ever female president of the United States.
I'm going to fight until every little girl in America knows she can grow up to be anything she wants, even President of the United States.
After failing to gain the 2008 Democratic nomination, she finds herself the frontrunner for the 2016 election 8 years later. Oh yeah, one more thing. She's also worth $31 million.
You know, this is a huge election. You never know what might happen. Let's get rid of the people that don't agree with us and only talk to the people who do. You could do that without a teleprompter.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah. All right, yeah.
Number 4, Christine Lagarde.
In the yearbook, you said, please, no more math. How did someone who hates math become the most important woman on the international financial scene?
Many of the women on this list exert power over their own individual countries. Christine Lagarde is just a little different. She's in charge of 189 countries. In 2011, she was appointed the first ever female managing director of the International Monetary Fund. For those unaware, the IMF works cooperatively with its countries to secure world financial stability, facilitate economic growth, and lessen world poverty. When she took the helm, the world was still working to recover from the financial crisis of the late 2000s. Lagarde has overseen positive global growth and has also changed economic understandings.
But essentially, if you bring more women to the job market, you create value, makes economic sense, and growth is improved.
She has placed an emphasis on the progressive idea of increasing the female labor force as a way to reduce poverty and inequality.
If you ask many women who are pioneers in their own field, they will often acknowledge that being a single woman or being a small minority is both hard and an opportunity.
Number 3, Janet Yellen. Speaking of money, we move on to the chair of the Board of Governors of the world's most powerful bank, the Federal Reserve. As the central banking system of the United States, the Fed conducts the national monetary policy and regulates the nation's banks.
She's quietly shaping a lot of thinking, and she's certainly going to be shaping the future of the American economy.
As the first female chairperson of the Federal Reserve, Yellen is in charge of arguably the most important economy in the world.
Earlier today, the Federal Open Market Committee decided to raise the target range for the federal funds rate by 1/4 percentage point, bringing it to 1/4 to 1/2%.
Coming off the Great Recession, she's consistently worked to reduce the Fed's monthly asset purchases of $85 billion. She's also had the responsibility to rein in the power of banks to reduce the possibility of another recession. Even in the company of fellow financial juggernauts like, say, Abigail Johnson, the president and CEO of investment firm Fidelity International, Yellen is likely to still be the most important person in the room.
Even with surprises and global events, Yellen is sure to continue her evidence-based approach to policy and keep calm and carry on.
Number 2, Melinda Gates. So far on this list, we've seen the power of politicians and businesswomen, but Melinda is different. She exerts the power of philanthropy.
Having people see that other people are making change with philanthropy, I mean, these are people who have created their own businesses, put their own ingenuity behind incredible ideas. If they put their ideas and their brain behind philanthropy, they can change the world.
As co-founder and co-chair of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, she is arguably the world's most influential philanthropist and ambassador for global development.
So we have to invest in the science for women, and we have to invest in the on-the-ground partnerships.
Since establishing the foundation with her husband in 2000, the Gates have donated over $30 billion. Her efforts are expansive, covering areas including poverty, renewable energy, and education.
We targeted 15-year-olds because they're really the ones that need to put the investments in now if we're going to get changes over the next 50 or 30 years, because these are long-term problems that we're talking about with time and energy.
Recently, she has placed an emphasis on working to improve equality and justice for women. In 2012, she pledged $560 million towards improving female access to contraception in third world countries. Without question, she works to improve the world every single day.
There's something about turning 50 that, at least for me, I look more at the end of my life and say, how much time do I have and what do I want to accomplish?
Before we unveil our top pick, here are a few honorable mentions.
She came to feminism in midlife, convincing the Supreme Court women were equal under the Constitution.
Will you raise your right hand?
Once appointed to the court, she became known for her scathing and meticulous dissents, often read out loud.
Because these girls are our girls. They are us. They each have the spark of something extraordinary inside of them, just like our daughters and our sons.
And I love the people of my country. And I couldn't, if I would say, be deaf to the call of so millions of people asking me to come back to my country, to lead the process that we need to, I would say, achieve in this new period in Chile.
I hope that memories of all this year's happy events will brighten our lives for many years to come. I will continue to treasure and draw inspiration from the countless kindnesses shown to me in this country and throughout the Commonwealth. Thank you all.
Number 1, Angela Merkel. Our top spot goes to one of the most important political leaders in Europe. She's done so much, but we're just going to focus on her work as German Chancellor. Currently in her third term, Merkel helped push Germany through the global economic crisis caused by the recession and secure one of the best economies in the world. Not only did she help Germany, but she also helped the rest of Europe too. Described as the de facto leader of the European Union, Merkel's Germany provided bailouts and support for fellow EU countries, eventually stabilizing the Eurozone. She's led the charge to support immigrants fleeing violent nations, proving her commitment beyond just Germany and to the entire world.
By viewing the refugees as victims to be rescued rather than invaders to be repelled, the woman raised behind the Iron Curtain gambled on freedom.
Do you agree with our list?
There will come a time.
It's gonna come back. Yeah, you were right.
Who do you think is the most powerful woman in the world? For more fascinating top 10s published daily, be sure to subscribe to Ms. Mojo.
I'm gonna go unscripted.
Okay, what do you think of that? That was a real good one. We're not going to let any quarantine stop our lifelong learning. So I decided to end with one last video, and I think that you're really going to enjoy this. This is the top 10 inventors, women inventors in history. And some of these inventions, I never realized that a woman invented them. Not that it couldn't happen, for sure. But let's take a look at the 10 most popular inventions which were invented by women. Let's take a look at this.
10 inventions by women that changed history. Number 10, Monopoly. Monopoly, or as it was originally called, the landlord's game, was patented in 1904 by Elizabeth Magie. She wanted the game to accurately represent the present system of land grabbing with its usual outcomes and consequences. This would include the successes and failures you'd experience in the real world. Maggie redrew the board multiple times until it came out just right. Now, a man by the name Charles Darrow ripped off the game and sold a version to the Parker brothers. Darrow and the Parker brothers made millions off of it. Elizabeth Magie didn't receive the proper credit for creating the game, as well as 2 other games she invented, King's Men and Bargain Day. Number 9, the fire escape. Anna Connolly invented a significantly upgraded version of the fire escape. Before her invention, metal or rope ladders were used to escape a burning building. Her design was patented in 1887. During this period in time, buildings had multiple floors, all of which were made of wood. This allowed fires to grow very quickly. Imagine trying to escape out of a burning building with a dangling rope ladder. Homes at the time had many combustible materials inside, so it just made sense to have an easy and quick way to escape if need be. Fire trucks during this period were simply just a truck with a water cart attached. Fire ladders only reached up to the 4th floor, so if you lived higher than that, you were out of luck if fire broke out. In 1979, New York City passed a law requiring all multi-story buildings to have a fire escape. Now, while landlords didn't enjoy this new extra cost, the invention of the fire escape has saved hundreds of thousands of lives. Number 8, Kevlar. Kevlar fiber was invented by Stephanie Kwolek in 1966. Now, everyone knows Kevlar from the Kevlar vests, but it's actually used in over 200 other products. This is bound to happen though, considering that Kevlar is 5 times stronger than steel. Car and bicycle tires, underwater mooring lines, racing sails, modern drumheads, frying pans, running shoes, cables, audio equipment, brakes, and smartphone parts are just a few. Number 7, submarine telescope and lamp. Little is known about the inventor of the submarine telescope and lamp, Sarah Mather. She was granted a patent for her invention in 1845. The invention was primarily used to inspect ship hulls that were still in the water. She then upgraded her invention and received another patent in 1864. Her invention was used in submarine warfare during the Civil War, as well as detecting Confederate underwater movement. Number 6, the life raft. Maria Beasley invented a much improved, much upgraded version of the life raft in 1882. Before her invention, life rafts were essentially a handful of boards connected. She changed the design to have fold-out handrails, metal floats, and a design that would unfold much faster. In her patent, it states her design as being fireproof, which was possibly important as wooden rafts in a wooden ship that's caught on fire. Yeah, it's possible the raft wouldn't even make it into the water before it got burned to pieces. Number 5, invisible glass. Catherine Blodgett, an American scientist, invented invisible glass while working at GE, or General Electric. She was the first woman to receive a doctorate in physics from Cambridge University and the first female scientist to be hired by GE. Catherine's invention of invisible glass is most popularly used in picture frames and camera lenses. But this wasn't her only invention. During World War II, she invented smoke screens, which saved many lives. Number 4, wireless transmission technology. Hedy Lamarr, an Austrian-born actress, together with George Antheil, invented a system for radio-controlled torpedoes during World War II. This invention used spread spectrum and frequency hopping technology to remove the threat of jamming from Axis forces. This laid the groundwork for technologies like GPS, Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth. What's really unique about Hedy's story is she was actually married to a Nazi arms dealer by the age of 19. She was essentially a prisoner in her own home, but being in this situation, her husband had many dinner parties where he discussed with other people about different weapons they had and how they worked. Through this experience, she gained a lot of knowledge. She eventually ran away to Paris and turned against the Axis forces, joining the Allies, creating this technology. Number 3, windshield wipers. Mary Anderson invented the windshield wipers in 1903 after a trip to New York City. She noticed that the streetcar drivers had to drive with the windows down just to be able to see what was going on when it was raining. She came up with a clever design to remove the snow and the rain with a swinging arm with a piece of rubber on the end that was attached to a lever on the inside of the car. You simply pulled the lever and it would manually wipe the windshield. People were skeptical at first of this design, but by 1916 they had become standard on most vehicles. The next year, Charlotte Bridgewood invented the automatic windshield wiper, and the rest is history. Number 2, the paper bag machine. Margaret Knight invented the flat-bottom paper bag machine in 1868. This machine, while it has been slightly modified and updated, is still used today to create paper grocery bags. A corrupt individual by the name of Charles Annan tried to steal her design, claiming a woman could never invent such an innovative machine. Margaret took him to court and won her case and received her patent in 1871. Number 1. Computer Language Compiler. Grace Hopper, along with Howard Aiken, designed a full room-size computer for Harvard called the Mark I in 1944. In 1952, Hopper and her team invented the first compiler that translated written language into a code that could be read and processed by a computer. Later, this became the foundation for one of the big programming languages, COBOL. Did you guys know that women came up with these inventions? Let me know in the comments below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel. If you want to join the notification squad, hit the bell button, turn on the notifications. And until next one, have a good one.
So how about that? Hedy Lamarr. How many of you knew that? And I couldn't be doing this webinar without that last woman's invention. Absolutely amazing that we can do this and bring lifelong learning right to you at these times. And I wish you all the best. I'll be back next week, hopefully, absolutely sooner than later. And I wish you all good health and stay well, stay safe. Jeff Camp signing off. Have a great day. Bye-bye.